Good afternoon, everybody. I'm beginning to call this the Eldership Club because here we are again with a star-studded cast of elders who've joined us to listen into all that Susie has to share about her life. And I'd love, as usual, first of all, to start with a bit of an acknowledgement of country. So I'm actually talking to you from Loftus, which is in Darawal lands, and it's at the very southeast section of Sydney as you go out into bush. And what more fitting day than this to talk to Susie, because I don't know, can you all hear the cicadas behind me?
No.
Sorry. All right, I'll try.
I'm imagining, but I can't actually hear them.
Right. Well, one of my most powerful moments with sound has been with cicadas, and I'll perhaps weave that into the story a bit later on. But Susie, whenever I think of sound or music bowls in particular, I always think of Susie. So I'd like to very much talk, or I guess introduce, or bring to the fore, that's the right word, about the concept of how sound travels traditionally, and the fact that any sound that's ever been uttered remains and continues moving around this mantle of the globe. And so it just is a beautiful thought that's really helped me along the way when I'm thinking into things to know that everything that I utter will stay out there. And the incredible healing of the cicadas behind me, I'm giving deep thanks for that. Deep thanks for country talking to me through these trees, giving me shade, through the sun on my back here, the wind that's coming through the window, keeping me cool. And I'd love to give my deep, deep thanks to Darawal elders, past, present and future, and communities that have really stood for this land and continue to stand, and hopefully will bring us all to our senses so that we're able to more deeply care and be custodians of this country. So having said that, Susie, welcome.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you. And I'd also like to acknowledge the elders up here in the Blue Mountains. I live in Katoomba, in the valleys and the trees, the forests up here, the mountains. And I'd like to acknowledge and give my love and gratitude to the Gundandara and the Darug nations up here. And it's a joy to live in this environment. I was saying to Kate earlier that it was a dream of mine since my early 20s, when I was up here for a meditation weekend with my girlfriend. I think I was probably 20 or 21. And we had the opportunity to sit on a beautiful rock overlooking the Jamison Valley. And I've not been a person that's really has a strength in vision, a lot of inner vision, but not outer vision. And I came out of my meditation and I saw this incredible energy right across the valley. And it was this purple vibration that came across the valley, raised up in the center, that I sense was like the center of this energy field. And it was vibrating this blue purple, and this feeling of incredible love and benevolence came over me. And I realized that I'd been gifted with seeing a valley deva, and a different energy to ourselves, a more subtle, finer vibration. And that impacted on me greatly. And it was at that time I thought, oh, I'd love to live in the mountains, because I've always drawn trees. It's been the one thing that I've really been able to draw well, and have a great affinity with nature, and particularly trees, and have really been fascinated to learn about their communication system under the ground with all the mycelium, and how they connect one to the other, how trees support each other. And in so many ways, that's impacted how I've lived my life and how my life has unfolded. And the work that I do with sound, Kate and Pauline and Merv, has all been about vibration and understanding vibration and the connection that we have one to the other. And that was a trigger, as I have had other triggers in my life as well, gently guiding me in this path of sound. And should I talk about that too, Kate?
I mean, I can't believe that you're not a visual person, for starters, because whenever I think about you, Susie, I always think about colors, really vibrant colors. And I'm noticing that both you and I are in deep purples today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I say about visual, I mean the unseen world. My strength is, we all have extrasensory strengths, and mine's really been about an inner knowing. And so whenever I've been gifted something like that, and it's happened several times in my life, I've always, my immediate thought has been, oh, thank you, God, for this gift, because it doesn't feel as if, it feels as if it's something that's been bestowed rather than something that's come from, an inner development. So another time, just sort of on that trajectory, I was studying in Hawaii. I studied crystal healing, which is how I got into sound. I've come from a background of study and of some academia, and I was CEO of a training centre for specially disadvantaged folk and long-term unemployed for a long time in Sydney. And so I had these parallel lives. I had that work and that study, that pathway. And then I had my natural therapies pathway, having started with a diploma when I was 20 years old in Swedish massage, and went through aromatherapy. And here I found, and Reiki, I taught Reiki for about 20, 25 years. But here I found myself in Hawaii studying with Katrina Raphael. And Katrina, back in the 80s and 90s, was well known in the field as a crystal healing teacher. And I studied with her over a 2-year period over on the island of Kauai. And while I was there with my good friend Maggie, and we were in a jacuzzi. It was warm. It was a moonless night. There was a soft rain falling. We were back in the hills behind Kapa'a in Kauai, and lights were out. It was sort of a B&B, and lights were out about 10 o'clock. So here we are, rebels, at 11 o'clock in the warm jacuzzi with crystals all around the jacuzzi. We had some little candles, and all the lights were out. It was perfectly still. And all of a sudden, I heard this choir. And I came out of that and I said to Maggie, oh, I think someone's awake and they've turned their radio on. She said, darling, I can't hear anything. I said, can't you hear that beautiful choir? She said, oh, I think you're hearing something else. So we settled back into meditation again, and I heard this incredible choral sound that sounded like thousands of voices. And I remember writing about it for an article over in the UK, and I described the sound like the murmuration of starlings. If you're familiar with that, you know how starlings come together as one and they flow in that beautiful sequence of movement together, and they fly as one, and there's thousands of them. So this sounded like a murmuration of starlings. And I realized then that I'd then been gifted this beautiful experience of a celestial choir. Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean, Kate, about that's not a usual thing that happens. It was something that I felt was just gifted because I was at such a point of happiness. And these things happen to me when I'm in a real state of deep joy and contentment and happiness. And that's when I feel that I've been able to connect with those other finer, more refined vibrations. So touching on vibrations, I've been teaching crystal healing for quite a while, and we needed to develop our own curriculum when we returned from Kauai. Katrina had 3 wonderful books, but there weren't any teaching tools, so we needed to develop all of that. And I always, I remember when I was at uni, I did a degree in English literature and philosophy and politics, and then I did a postgraduate in communication management. And I always thought, okay, you know, these are passions, these are interests. What sort of job am I going to get with this? And then I realized when I started to create my own course material and my own curricula for the various courses that I taught, I thought, oh yeah, that's what it was about. And it just confirmed to me how important it was to follow your passion and the real deep interest, because then things will work out and unfold in a way that I couldn't have envisioned at the time. So
it's a beautiful thing that you've just said. I mean,
yeah.
that we were talking about that yesterday, Susie, actually, that it's very hard to determine where you're going to go. That
yes,
a large part of it is just the faith and the understanding. And when you have gorgeous experiences like that connect you, for want of a better word, to the divine or the bigger being, or our deeper selves, or whatever you want to call that, isn't it somehow like a moment where you go, oh, you know, it's licensed to carry on. It fills you with energy,
yes.
and you know where we need to go as a humanity, all lifting our voice in song as one. That was a clear message there, or that
Yes,
that the land is there, and that you can be with the land on that level of being. All of those important things that we need to keep moving through our own systems, but bringing into the wider system.
exactly. Yeah.
You've done a lot of that. You've had 25 years, did you say?
Yeah. Next year is my 25th anniversary of playing the Crystal Bowls, and it was that was sort of a really exciting thing that happened. A friend of mine said, "Oh, I saw this paragraph in a magazine about crystals had been formed into crystal bowls, and you could play them as a musical instrument." And when she told me that, honestly, I almost went berserk. I was so super excited. I couldn't believe it. And I just had to follow through and find out more about that. And years earlier, I had said to one of my friends, "Oh, I'm going to be recording a CD." And she said, "Well, what's it going to be about?" I said, "I have no idea. I just sort of have this feeling that I'm going to be recording a CD one day." And I asked that my girlfriend, when I did my second CD, I think it was, I asked my girlfriend to come and be with me in the studio, because you know, it was just one of those unexpected things. I thought, you know, this is in the time of cassettes. CDs hadn't even been invented then, and I was seeing that I was going to record something. Anyway, so that started my journey with Crystal Bowls, which just had just segued so beautifully from crystals and working with the mineral kingdom, which I still do, and I have a certification course that is continuing next year. It started this year, into the world of crystal bowls. And you were talking about the morphic resonance, you know, that goes around the earth, and how vibration is something that is continuous. And when I sort of came to that concept, I thought how important it is, the thoughts that we think, even to take it back to that level, the way we are in the world, and the thoughts that we think are a vibration, and we're putting that out in the world, how important it is to really take ourselves back and look at not just how we are in the world, what we say, but what we think, and have that as meaningful and as loving and as balanced and as fair as possible, because those vibrations also go out into the world. And
they do. And then I think, you know, your part of the professional world of healing is to bring those thoughts and give them sound and send them on their way further and louder, I guess.
Exactly, because the crystal bowls have the quality, because they're made out of crystal or gemstones, and in the case of the alchemy bowls, which Crystal Tones, the amazing company that's developed alchemy bowls, it's a real advancement from the classic frosted bowls. And they have they've been doing this now for probably about 27, 28 years, of creating the alchemy bowls that are made of quartz crystal, and to which has been added gemstones or a metal, sacred metal like gold and platinum, and also sacred earth, and from vortexes in different places around the world. So the crystal bowls, they have the innate quality of magnifying and amplifying our thoughts, and the sound that they make. And so that's why we work very clearly with intention. And intention is a very important component in working with sound therapy with crystal bowls.
It's a purification, isn't it? That sound is such a purity. And, you know, of course, setting our own intention, whatever field we're working in with healing, is fundamental, because that's the energy that's going to be transmitted. But when it comes to hitting a bowl, there's just that, you know, bringing everything down and distilling it into the one hit that then creates that sound. So it's
well, the you know, it is so important to work with intention, because energy follows thought, but the eye directs the energy. And that saying has sort of, a lot of us have only got the first part of that message, that energy follows thought. But the second equally important part is that the eye directs the energy. So this is where I think training is really important in working with these deeper transformational modalities, and that's been really a very, very much a focus of what I teach, is teaching sound therapy using crystal singing bowls as a healing modality. So yes, performance is really important, and that can be wonderful to do a concert. But even if when you're doing a concert, we'd have a simple intention of that this will bring peace, or this will give to those hearing it what they need for their own balance and harmony. So yeah, intention is just an integral part of what we do. And I'm interestingly, I've started to work with people in China, and this has sort of come about in the last year. One of my clients is a Chinese medicine doctor, and she approached me and asked me would I be interested in working through her platform, which is a platform that is seen by people in China. And she's working with a shamanic healer and myself with sound. And it's been a really interesting concept and then development as we've worked together with it. And so I'm still able to work with intention with people in China that has to be translated through the Chinese medicine doctor. And then playing to that intention, which is then sent to them. And there's other processes that go on as well, and they're still able to do that, even though it has to be translated.
So is that as medicine for people? Is that what you're saying? So the Chinese doctor provides the sound and the intention that you have created.
Yes. and with all of her own embellishments as well, because she does the consultation, and we worked on the consultation form together. And I always like to have a drawing involved in our crystal sound work. And so there's a before the crystal sound session and there's an after crystal sound session. And we've isolated, or the client has chosen, the note or the chakra that they need more of. So the premise on which we ask them to do that is that they're going to choose, because I believe a person knows what they need more than anybody else. I'm not someone who believes in telling somebody what to do. So I've devised ways in which they can inform me and crystal sound therapist of what they need. And so they, and the facilitation of that is in the consultation process. So they tell us what intuitively they need more of. And then we explore the qualities of that chakra, which informs them. And they always say, oh, yes, that's right, because it's actually come from them.
Yes, beautiful. And, you know, you've touched on it a few times from different angles, that rich relationship to structure and sound. And I always come back to that. In the beginning, there was the word, and
yes,
wise cultures talk about it all started with sound and then took form. So very deep way to be working. And
it is. And, you know, it comes back for me, it's a deeply philosophical and theosophical point of view that I personally have, and been a student of theosophy and both esoteric and exoteric philosophy since I was a teenager. And I guess in my life, it's the single most important thing for me is my spiritual life. And it's not anything that I impose on anybody else. It's what directs me in my life. And the belief that we are all, the understanding that we come from a oneness. And that's what I like to create in my teaching programs and in my course. And when I'm doing consultations, it's that sense of oneness, that we are all connected, and we're connected to the land, we're connected to each other, connected to animals, we're connected to the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom. And coming from that is looking forward to the future. And I think, what's the future of sound? And I believe the future of working with crystal bowls is in collaboration. And I think the crystal bowls are called the purest sound in the world. Now, I don't know whether that's absolutely true or not. It's something that's been said for many years, but it's certainly true for me, because I've not heard anything else that I would say was pure, except maybe for that celestial choir that I mentioned earlier.
Well, it's a beautiful thing to bring that to be on earth, isn't it? And make that connection from spirit to formation, you know, as has always been done, you know, singing up, etc.
Yes. And I think that's what SoulAdvisor has been very much about, and why I was one of the reasons I was excited about SoulAdvisor, is bringing allied medicine, complementary medicine, traditional medicine in to join with scientific medicine, because there's so much science behind the complementary medicine. And I think the way forward is for these two to be more and more entwined. And I think sound will play an integral part of that moving forward into the Aquarian age, which is very much about oneness and collaboration.
It's true. And, you know, there's how many different types of healing modalities and how many different types of therapies out there. And it feels like at the crux of it all, we need to agree that we want everyone to not only survive, but thrive. And that the world is here for us, not doing things to us. And it's not, as what's that beautiful elder's name, Mary, I have to remember her name in a minute, but she talks about the fact that it's really important to move away from a survivalist point of view into a relational point of view, where absolutely everything is connected, and sound is, we walk into a soundscape, we're born into a soundscape, and that scape continues to inform us our whole lives, and we contribute to that soundscape in different ways. So being aware of how to use the healing sound is so important.
Well, we are co-creators, and I think if we take on that concept, we're not having things then imposed upon us. We're agreeing to something, or we're moving forward with with our own thoughts on it, and bringing others with us. It's that co-creation concept, and that's what I love about the thought of collaboration. So many of my students have come back to me and told me of different relationships that they're having with other healing modalities. So one of the first things is with yoga. So many crystal sound therapists are now working with yoga teachers, and they might be doing half day, they might call it a spa, or they might call it a half day retreat or a full day weekend retreat. Crystal Bowls are collaborating with 5 rhythm dance teachers and other forms of dance. They're collaborating with, I'm just thinking back to the wonderful conference that we organised. Mignon Lee Warden and Carmen Warrington and myself organised the first global Crystal Bowl conference about 4 or 5 years ago. And we had a wonderful contingent came out from Japan, Jun Makino and Dr. I'm sorry, I sort of can't pronounce his Japanese name, but they demonstrated, like at that conference, it was all about collaboration. It was all about supporting each other in the different ways and the many ways you can work with crystal singing bowls. And we had lots of little workshops and presentations that different crystal bowl players played. And personally, I don't believe in competition. I'd like to move away from that fairly mechanistic way of looking at the world. I really believe in collaboration and supporting each other. And that's what this conference was about. And we had a chiropractor, Japanese chiropractor, working with Jun Makino, who is like a 30-year crystal bowl player in Japan. And I think Crystal Tones call him the grandfather of crystal bowls. And they showed us how they work together with placing the crystal bowls at the head, behind the knees, in different parts of the body, and the bowls were played, and then the chiropractor did adjustments. And the difference that made by incorporating and including sound into that session was remarkable for the client. And there were many other demonstrations of that. And I really feel in the future there's going to be more and more ways that we can creatively think of the crystal singing bowl supporting other modalities. And already it's being used a lot in yoga, in meditation. I have a student over in the UK who is working with midwives with her crystal bowls and birthing at birth with mums. I mean, the world is just opening up.
The world is opening up, and it's a really interesting place to be right now as somebody working in the healing arts, in therapy and as a health worker. And I think, one of the commonalities of intention has to be that we all become healthy and we all become strong. And then if that is absolutely understood with no caveats about who should die or who shouldn't be supported to the same extent, if we were actually here for each other, then it would be a no-brainer to use all the modalities that we are brilliant at to bring forward in serving that higher goal of helping everybody to be as healthy and as strong as they might be. And
yes, and happy, Kate.
And happy is, that's fundamental. The thing about it is, we have to, there is a way to be that actually supports everybody and everything. And I I was actually reading this morning about native bees. So I'm just going to weave into the conversation. So these native bees, I don't know how familiar all of you are with them, but there's 1,200 types of native bees in Australia. And some of them have got little red stripes and yellow stripes and blue stripes, purple, all kinds of interesting things. And when it comes to making honey, they don't make as much as the honeybees that we've imported, but the honey that they make is amazing. And it exchanges sucrose for I have to pronounce it now. I think it was terralulose or something like that. But this particular sugar that they take the sucrose from the nectar, create the honey, causes no spike in your blood sugar level. So it actually is basically a treatment or a leveler, and is totally delicious, but it doesn't cause diabetes. And as we know, that's a really big problem for humans. And it also doesn't encourage us to eat jar after jar of honey, because they only make that much per year. So it's like, that's a really special food/medicine. And it's got healing properties that I will take. But all of these little bees, 1,200 different types of them, don't have stings. They're all stingless. So it's
I'm hoping that part of that study that you were looking at, they also promote ways in being able to gather the honey that doesn't take it from the bees and kill the bees off. There's a lot of natural beekeeping that's being done up here in the mountains. And a particular friend that I know, he only gathers the honey once a year, and he only takes the excess. Because a lot of commercial honey, a lot of the bees end up being killed. So, with that natural beekeeping and the gathering of the honey, sort of hoping that it's done in a way. And I would imagine, if this has come from indigenous wisdom, that of course there is a way of doing that, because they're all about sustainability, and but isn't that incredible?
It's so incredible to think that of what we have here, incredible. And to just be quiet for a minute and listen and use that incredible sense of being able to hear by creating quiet within yourself for the vibrations to move through. I've often wondered, whether that's not the difference, but if somebody's able to reach that silence and then listen to singing bowls, it's an entirely different experience.
Well, I'm so happy that you brought that up, Kate, because that is the absolute premise of how I personally play the bowls and how I teach, is to help our clients reach that point, that peaceful place within where there is stillness. Because in the quiet, in the stillness, when nothing else is happening, that's when the true deep healing occurs. And playing the bowls in a certain way helps people reach that place. And that is a real focus of what I do and how I teach. And in that quiet, and also just quietness and silence, frames music, frames the sound. And so not being afraid of that is a really confidence thing that we as crystal sound therapists try to develop, so that if you're doing a concert, if you're doing a sound session, that there's a willingness of the therapist, of the performer, the player, to allow the sound to completely fade away, and then have, seemingly to our ears anyway, a nothingness, and then slowly come back again. But of course, the vibration is experienced still, even though our ears can't hear it, our body is feeling it. So silence and stillness is an integral part of playing crystal singing bowls.
Beautiful. Oh, look, I could talk about sound forever and a day, and hopefully we'll keep talking about it for a little while. But just in case anybody else would like to chime in with questions or thoughts from the gallery. Yes, Merv.
Susie, music therapy is a thing within our conventional medicine system.
Yeah.
Where is your therapy at the moment?
So sound therapy, music therapy has a different focus. Sound therapy is it's quite different from music therapy. It hasn't got the same musical structure. Every time you play the crystal bowls, you are embracing your own intuitive guidance. And though we play in chords and triplets, and we develop a knowingness about our own crystal bowls and the sounds they make. And so in that knowingness, that's why it takes some time to become a proficient and skilled crystal sound therapist. The bowls themselves are easy to play. Most people can get a sound out of it. But to play musically, to play as a healing modality, well, that is a journey. That is a real practice, and it does take time. So in the conventional way of looking at music therapy, say in the hospital structure, and sound therapy, we have done, a lot of my students have done a lot of projects in nursing homes, and in a hospital, a structure as sort of some once-offs, but as a musical therapist would be standing beside an occupational therapist, for example, and that would be a whole pathway for them. Sound therapy at this point has been more a little specialty item, if I can say it like that. But for myself, I was invited when the Mater Hospital was still standing in North Sydney. I was invited by their social worker to go and play to a group of women that had cancer that had metastasized, and so I went along, and they hadn't had any other complementary medicine, and so I played the bowls, and they absolutely loved it. And I said, look, if anybody wants to have me in their home, I'd be very happy to come. So a couple of weeks later, I had a phone call from a sister of Peggy, who was one of the patients there, and asked if I would come to their home, and they would gather together a group. And I did like about an hour and a half. And Peggy had asked another lady who had also had cancer that had metastasized. That's the correct, I'm saying that correctly, aren't I? Metastasized. Metastasized. Thank you. Always get that one mixed up. And but she wasn't as far along that path as Peggy. So I was about 2 minutes from the end, and I just came towards the end of playing, and then Peggy's friend, I suddenly heard this like this. So I continued playing. I finished off, left it a minute or so, and then I went over to her and I said, is everything okay here? And she said, oh, look at my neck. She said, look, I can turn my neck. She said, I'd had a car accident 2 years ago and I had whiplash. And he said, I've only been able to move my neck to here. But she said, look at it now. And her whole clavicle had just gone and had gently moved back into place. And so that was, that was wonderful, absolutely wonderful to her. And I'll just finish another little bit to the story, not exactly connected to music therapy, but just to finish this particular story. A few weeks later, Peggy's sister phoned me and she said, look, I wanted to let you know that Peggy has passed away. I said, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. She's such a beautiful lady. And I'd given the girls one of my CDs, and she said, whenever things got too much for Peggy, we always put on your CD for her, and it really just helped her, brought her a lot of comfort and brought her back to a point of relaxation, and it really helped her. And she said, oh, and we played the CD at her funeral. And I thought, you know, look, even if I always really encourage my students, graduates, to record music, because if someone can't get to you in person, the next best thing is a very good recording. And it is difficult to record crystal bowls. It really is. They're not easy to record, and it takes a special skill. But yeah, so I just wanted to finish off that story. So that was that invitation came from a friend's friend. So it wasn't directly from the hospital per se, but the social worker was good friends with my bestie and heard about what I did, and so wanted to bring me into the system for the benefit of the clients. And there's been quite a few other things. I'm really interested in working with people with chronic illness, and have done quite a bit of that over, not just with crystal bowls, but also with Reiki and other things, other projects that I have. Would you like to hear about one of those? Where, I'll just stop me if you've heard this, but I had a project one time. It was a 7-week project for people with chronic illness, and we incorporated crystals, Reiki, and crystal bowls. So we had people who had HIV, muscular neuropathy, cancer, peripheral blindness, peripheral vision impairment. And we met at the Quakers Centre in Sydney that gifted us this beautiful big round room, and invited Reiki practitioners to come, and we had massage tables set up, and we did the before and after drawing. We laid crystals on the body. We had a couple of Reiki practitioners giving Reiki while I played the crystal bowls, and then our clients would draw how they felt afterwards. And just one couple of stories there. Have we got time? Yes, a couple of stories. There was one of the ladies, she loved it, but it wasn't until a couple of weeks later that she wrote and told me, she was the one with peripheral impairment. She had to go for her regular eye checkup because she'd lost her driving license, and she went for her driving license, and she got it because her peripheral vision had come back. And the only different thing that she had done from anything else was the 7 weeks of that project. And the other was muscular neuropathy. One of the participants, he came down from Newcastle with his family, and he walked with calipers on his legs and walking sticks, and his hands were sort of like this, rather claw-like. And doctors had said the next thing for him is in a wheelchair. So he'd lost hope, basically. And the really telling thing was when we got to the heart chakra, we did the 7 weeks was doing a different chakra each week. And when we got to the heart, his first drawing was this little tiny heart. It was all colored dark. And then after the session, when he did his second drawing, it was, 100%, 400% bigger, and it had light colors coming out of it. And that was a real turning point for him, that his heart had opened and he really felt it. But he also felt vibrations and sensations from day one in his hands, his knees and his feet. And he hadn't had any sensations in his lower limbs or his hands for a number of years. And I think I might have been doing a concert, might have been with Jane Elworthy. I'm just trying to remember, in Newcastle. And he and his sister came, and he said that after the session, he started, excuse me, he went to the gym, he learned Reiki, he was no longer wearing calipers, and he did have a walking stick because he had broken an ankle. But he said for a year, he was able to throw those things away. So
very exciting and very dramatic results, really.
Very dramatic, yeah.
Very,
excuse me.
It's a beautiful thing to, as a therapist of any sort, to realize what a difference we as one person can make in facilitating happiness and health, isn't it?
It's the sound. It's the sound that's doing it. And yes, of course, we're facilitating that. But it's the crystal bowl. Excuse me.
You're allowed to cough. I'm just going to see if anybody else has a question out there while you're having a cough.
Yeah.
Got questions burning bright. Oh, Merv again. Yep.
I'll only ask if nobody else has any questions. Susie, the correlation between, or not correlation between crystal bowls, the metal bowls, throat singing and singing, and I've heard some sessions where they've done metal bowls in conjunction with throat singing. Can you sort of clarify all that for us, where the connections or disconnections are with what you do?
Well, we do toning and vocalization as well with the crystal bowls. The metal bowls, I have some dear friends who are beautiful practitioners with the crystal bowls, and they play a couple of Tibetan bowls and Japanese bowls, and they are incredibly skilled, and it blends beautifully. With the throat singing, oh my goodness, what a skill. One of my colleagues over in the States, she taught herself that, took a year of practice. She's a 4-octave range, beautiful, beautiful voice. And but it was incredible. I personally don't know much about it. It's a skill. I don't have that skill. But it can blend beautifully with the crystal bowls, with the metal bowls. But with whether it's metal or whether it's crystal bowls, you need to be skilled in playing it. They're deceptively simple to play, but to play really well, it really takes some time. And so I guess that's what I would encourage, that if anybody has those bowls and are playing the bowls, that you really practice a lot. Practice a lot, and don't be content just with a couple of months of playing. And for me personally, I felt I became one with the bowls, but it took a couple of years. And it's continued, even though I've been playing next year for 25 years. I'm learning new things all the time. And I think it's and it would be the same with vocalizing. I know that I can remember a beautiful student of mine who was very reluctant to do any singing or toning. A few years after she graduated, and we used to collaborate and do a lot of labyrinth work together, building a labyrinth and then playing the bowls while people walk the labyrinth. It's an amazing experience. And she said that she'd started singing, and now she was loving it, and she was including that in her sound sessions. So yeah, it can be a beautiful collaboration. The difference between the two, I personally feel that the crystal bowls really work at every level. It's a finer vibration than the metal bowls. I think the metal bowls are very connected physically, and I think also emotionally. And I have had healings with crystal bowls. For my psyche. They're a little bit harsh for me, except when they have been played by these friends I'm talking about. Look, they are have played with symphony orchestras. They are so good, and it's seamless. But I think you, like with the crystal bowls, the metal bowls, you need a lot of practice to be able to really help someone reach that deeper healing. The crystal bowls, it really works at every level. I mean, once again, it depends how they're played. I've seen the bowls played in many different ways, particularly when I was touring over in the States. And, you know, I didn't have anyone to teach me here. You know, it was back in that time, it was sort of a self-taught thing. And a friend over in the States, she contacted me, and we became friends and toured together and did collaborations because she couldn't find anybody else that played like her, and then she found me. So we're subtle, you know, and so so yes, the difference between the two for me is that the crystal bowls is the subtlety of it is really works on every level, and I feel it's easier to get there with the crystal bowls than it is with the metal. And the metal can work at all levels of your being, your subtle energy fields, but you need to be very, very proficient to do it. The vocalization, oh, what a skill. What a beauty that is. Ashana is a beautiful practitioner. If ever you, and she's a gorgeous person. She's put out some beautiful CDs with her magnificent 4-octave range and crystal bowls. I'd really recommend, if you're interested to see how that works, to have a listen to one of her CDs. She does a beautiful version of Ave Maria, which is just amazing.
Will you let us know, how do you spell that?
Ashana, Ashana.
Dana, okay.
Yeah, and there's also another beautiful woman. I will send you her name, Mare Mauritius. Oh, she is absolutely gorgeous, and she plays classic frosted bowls and sings. And then of course there's Tom. What's Tom's last name? He does the Hathor visions. Oh gosh, I went to his workshop. Tom, can't remember his last name, but anyway, there are people there and Tom does. I'll send you his name, Kate, and you could pass it on to Merv. Tom does that throat singing, Merv, and he plays crystal bowls, and it's beautiful. So I'll find those and I'll send those to Kate to send them.
Yeah, so although, you know, when you started, you had to make it up as you went along, as it were. Yeah. And since then, it sounds like you've got quite a community around you, or maybe people that you consider elders in the field. Are there people that you've learned from?
I sort of I hadn't thought of it in that way. I'd see them as being beautifully skilled in other areas of the field, and they'd certainly would be elders in their community. That's for sure. And yes, in the global field, definitely. Yes, I would see that, and I'd certainly see Jun Makino as an elder. Yes, I would see all of them when I think about that as elders in their field and beautifully skilled and really advocates of playing the bowls in a very healing way.
Beautiful. Now I see we've got Anastasia's crept in, and she's disguised as a bunch of flowers.
Oh, that suits her down to the ground.
Got Joe Doyle there too. And Pauline, would any of you like to ask any questions? Everybody's very Sunday today. No?
Probably a controversial question, and it was asked of me not long ago, and I didn't know, so I just said, I think you know, the universe provides in different ways for different people to experiment things. And the person wasn't aggressive, but was wanting to know, why is it that the word was, why do all our spiritual people want to not have minerals dug up out of the earth, and yet here we are, we're all running around wanting our amethysts and our bowls and etc. etc. Susie, how do you answer a question like that if it has ever been asked of you?
And it has, Pauline, it has been asked. And there are now crystal merchants that that will ensure as best that they can that there hasn't been an exploitation of thinking, particularly of what was happening in Brazil and also what was happening in Africa, exploitation of the workers, but also of the land. So there are many of us that do not like the idea of dynamite and explosions being used to, you know, eventually get to the crystals that are in the earth. I know I've got some crystals here in my house. I've got 25 kilo crystals. One is a cathedral library, which is a smoky quartz. It's about it's about so big, and a huge cluster. And I bought those from people who supported a village in India, and that village in India, they hand mined crystals, and they bought the crystals in haversacks from the mine back to the village. And these folk, it was a spiritual group, and they helped support this village, and they lived in the mountains. And this was like, I don't know, 15 years ago that I would have got these crystals. And so that was important to me to have that story, and so I am conscious of where I get crystals from, as much as I can, because it's, I mean, the crystals being in our world now as tools for transformation is it is a gift from the earth. And and using polish, some people don't want to use polished crystals, others only want to use mineral specimens, but I think there's a place for both, because in the polishing of crystals, particularly creating cabochons, which are flat on one side and curved on the other, it makes for easy placement on the body. Because when you're doing an advanced crystal healing work, you're creating a mandala at every chakra. So you might have 40 crystals on the body. So working with cabochons and having the crystals as gemmy as possible, whether it might be a tiger's eye, and it's never going to be a translucent crystal, that's not its natural nature, but it can still be a gemmy crystal because the colors are vibrant and it's of a high quality. So working with those crystals as much as possible, it brings more light into the person's body for them to be able to transform whatever it is that comes up in the crystal healing that they want to transform. So it is important, and I think crystal shops and crystal merchants and crystal healers, if they are working with awareness and consciousness, they will seek those crystals out rather than
just blow them up, so to speak.
Yeah. And
I mean,
and if you are aware and conscious, you try the very best you can to source the crystals that have come from those type of setups or establishments.
Have you ever been to Broome, and there is a several ton quartz Buddha, And the lady that bought the Cable Beach Club Resort for her husband for a birthday gift, she had it made in the Philippines and shipped out in, I think, in 2 pieces. And it is massive.
How big is it?
It's huge. It's huge. I cannot tell you. It's several tons the size of the Buddha, or the weight of the Buddha.
Wow.
And it's just amazing. And I had the privilege to take a yoga class at the feet of the Buddha. And that was amazing.
Oh, how beautiful. Well, I have been to Broome, and I was able to, I didn't see that. I was there probably 11 years ago. But I did see the Stairway to Heaven.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, where the water,
Yes.
the tide of
isn't
the
that
water
stunning?
goes out and the moon's above it, and it looks
Yes.
like the Stairway to Heaven. I mean, that was just incredible.
That was
But I
beautiful.
have, yes, I had a friend in London, and in her home, she had a quartz Buddha that was massive, was half a, not as big as the one you're talking about, but it would have been half a body size. And that was absolutely magnificent. And I was teaching over in Vietnam, actually. I was at a Four Seasons resort that they were that they had taken over, and they asked me to go and have you heard of Four Seasons hotels? Yeah.
Yes.
So
definitely.
at Four Seasons hotels, the spa is an important part of what they offer their clients. It's like a 5-star hotel. So they'd invited me to go over and teach their spa staff, their massage staff, how to play the crystal bowls. And I mean, it was really hard to say yes to that job offer. And so I was over there teaching them, and in each they had 10
Oh,
rooms.
there's too many.
Sorry? Oh, I just heard a voice come on there. So anyway, I was over there teaching, and they had, in the reception area, we had 3 crystal bowls, 2 big classic frosteds, and a magnificent gold therapeutic bowl. And they played them every afternoon at, I think it was like 6 o'clock, and the guests could come down and write an intention on a piece of paper, put it in one of the little sailboats, paper sailboats that had a candle in it, and it would go out into the lake while the staff played the 3 crystal bowls. But they also had a beautiful crystal Buddha there that was rather stylized. It was on a stand, and so I was able to put my arm around this crystal Buddha, and while they were playing the bowl. So that was pretty special. That was my other experience with a crystal Buddha that I can recall.
You've had so many beautiful experiences, and it's been so nice to go out and think about all the things that you've done. And as you come up to the 20th,
fortunate.
The thing I love about when you and I were talking previously, we'll have to finish soon because it's 1:35, but you were talking about celebrating this 25th year of practice. And I love that you're deliberately celebrating how far you've come on your journey towards being an elder in the crystal bowl area.
Yes. Thank you, Kate. One of the lovely things that we've organised is that September next year, at International Day of Peace, which is on the 21st of September, the crystal bowl world, the community, I believe as a whole, is very interested in doing some service. And so one of the things that we're going to do is have a weekend up here in the mountains at the Brahma Kumaris Centre for Spiritual Learning. And this is where we had our Crystal Bowl conference a number of years ago. But we're going to have this weekend for international peace. And so inviting students, graduates and colleagues to come to that weekend. And we're going to do a live concert, a live peace concert on the Saturday evening, or it may be on the Sunday, haven't quite decided, where as we will collaborate with each other and do a beautiful crystal bowl peace concert in celebration of my 25 years, but particularly to send out peace and love to the world with our crystal bowls. And we did that when we had the conference, and it was just wonderful. It was wonderful seeing the different ways and styles that people play crystal bowls. And that's what I mean about collaboration and working together for the benefit of all. And with sound vibration, and maybe it's a good way to conclude, Kate, as you said, the vibration goes on. And so whenever we send out that vibration, it's so important to have intention. And I couldn't think of a better way to sort of conclude my special year next year, is to have a concert of peace, and that we all collaborate together, we work together as one, and that would that's a happy place, isn't it?
It is a happy place. And I think, you know, I love that you're contributing that to the field, that sound, that intention, because it really, what we're all doing makes no sense in the context of war and pestilence. It does make sense if we know that that's not our natural human condition, and get through that crazy thought that war has to happen, and get through that crazy thought poverty has to happen.
Where's our Department of Peace? My dear friend of mine, Bianca Pace, who had the best crystal shop that I've ever been to in the world. It was in Nurses Walk in the Rocks, and Bianca has passed away now, but she was a dear friend and a lovely collaborator, and she was chairperson of the peace community, or the peace department. Well, was trying to encourage governments to establish a Department of Peace. We've got a Department of Defense. Where's our Department of Peace? So in lieu of having a Department of Peace, whenever we can do these peace projects, you know, it's putting it out there in a tangible way. I mean, it's tangible to us who understand about energy and vibration in a tangible way, and I really love to see it, that sort of thing happening more and more. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And on that positive thought, let's hope that it is so. And it has been so lovely having a chat with you.
Oh,
and
you too.
Everything that you've done. And thank you for coming on a Sunday in particular. Beautiful day. And you still probably can't hear the cicadas, but they're singing madly over here. So they're listening to everything you're saying. And,
thanks so much, Kate and Pauline and Merv, Josephine and Anastasia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll have this up very soon on YouTube in the matter of days. And then I'll send everybody out the link to that, including you, of course. So
Thank you. Lovely.
You've said some beautiful things, and it's really creating this picture of eldership. So tomorrow we don't have a session, but on Tuesday I think we're Merv, aren't we? Is that Tuesday? Yes. So looking forward to that chat, and on we go. And thank you again.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks, everyone.
Bye all. Bye.